Welcome back to Streamline Entertainment. It's Marvin speaking. We're going to get into part two, the disappearance of Jay Slater, disturbing case for murder. True Geordie and his take on the Jay Slater documentary part two.
Now, the family of the missing British teenager Jay Slater had hoped he might be found after he went missing on the island of Tenerife. Well, today that hope ended after the Spanish Civil Guard confirmed that members of a mountain rescue team had found a body.
It took them a whole month of searching to find him. That's how difficult it was to get to that spot. On the one hand, if you were someone who had a hold of Jay and this was something that was done to Jay, you would try and get him as far away as possible, as unfindable as possible, so that the remains never get found, as opposed to Jay himself.
That's a really, really good point. But the thing is, I think where money was involved in there, they had to get that body back to Tenerife, and they had to place it as though it was an accident, and that was the only way basically the family, I think, could get the body back.
Trying to go as far away from the road as possible. That doesn't mean that's what happened to him, but just speculating, it took them a whole month. When they even knew roughly where to look, it still took them that long.
So even after Jay was found, there were more crazy conspiracy theories which continued.
They're saying crazy conspiracy theories, right? Someone said still believe he was murdered. The mother herself got a message right after he'd gone missing saying you're never getting him back. I don't think it's then crazy to go when he turns up dead going, yeah, he was murdered. It's not crazy to make that leap when you're getting actual messages from people saying we're going to kill him.
And what we got to remember, that was very, very early on in the case that she got that message, and it was alarming.
Not crazy when it's the least logical thing for a guy to willingly go in that direction and disappear when he could have got a taxi. He's messaging people saying I can't go back there. The night before he's saying we stole a watch. The night before he's showing pictures of him holding knives saying just in case it kicks off inside the Airbnb. I don't think that to make a leap to say he was murdered is crazy at all, by the way. I think you're actually just missing a few small, pieces of evidence to put that all together. It's not a crazy thing to suggest. Is it possible that they're wrong? Yes, it's possible that they're wrong. It doesn't mean it's crazy, in my opinion, to say that he was murdered at all. I never believe it was an accident. Do you think foul play was involved? That isn't crazy. What's crazy is just going, yeah, just an accident there. One of those things. Let's just all go home. That would be crazy.
This is why a lot of people had read the narrative, put the paper down and thought that was it. But there was a lot more that meets the eye if they looked into the characters that were involved.
Crazy to not even suspect it. When in this documentary, all of the people who could give you the most amount of information haven't shown their fucking face once, by the way. Where's his friends? Where's the last people to see him? Why are they not giving as much information to us as possible to piece it all together? Because that's what I would do. If you ask me, that's crazy. And again, it doesn't mean that it wasn't an accident, that the official story isn't right, but it's just not normal that.
Jay Slater will have a post-mortem in the UK so that we know what has happened to him and we have the experts on hand to testify at the inquest.
Okay, so we are going to get some information from the scientists to tell us what was in his body, what injuries he suffered and all of that stuff.
There were some people who had met Jay on holiday who had been with him that night, and they did have information, so they was going to approach Lancashire Police.
Yes, they've confirmed the three names of the people.
So why didn't they?
That they've obtained statements from, which was Josh Forshaw, Lucy Law, and Brandon Hodgson.
We have got to the point where literally anybody can build a fully working app without knowing how to code. This is
Brandon here. He knew the guys at the Airbnb. No appearance from him in this at all.
100%, because like I said, the quiet ones are the most involved, and we know him talking to MWT, he wanted to be 100 miles away from the case and made out that he didn't know anyone involved in this case, no Ayub and Rocky. We know that, he knows Ayub and Rocky, and Ayub have said that he's good friends with Brandon's brother, Dylan.
At some point during those calls to Brandon, Bradley and Lucy, he's taken a side path, a track. Lucy's advised him to turn around and head back up to the main road, and that she'd make arrangements to either come pick him up or get a taxi.
And apparently there were 70 different phone calls, roughly, on the run-up to when he went missing here. So, like, what were all these fucking phone conversations saying? What was going on? That's a chaotic amount of phone calls, That's not like, nothing's really happening. That's a lot. What was said in them? Because I ain't got a fucking clue, and I've been following this.
I think the Geordie Civil, when they did the download, said there were like 70 calls.
There you go. 70 calls suggests there's problems, there's trouble, there's aggro, something is going on. You don't do 70 fucking phone calls if nothing's occurring in your life, do you? That also makes me wonder what was going on to have that much communication going back and forward. Because the amount of back and forth that we've been given on when he got lost, it's not 70. We've been told about a handful of conversations he had with a couple of people. Nowhere near 70. So what was the 70 coming from? And it doesn't make you a conspiracy theorist to fucking ask that kind of question.
And obviously one of the big questions is, was Jay in access of his own phone? Just because his phone was there doesn't mean Jay was there at the time that these phone calls were being made.
This is the last call where he's rung Lucy back at 10 to 9, and it's just for 22 seconds. And then Lucy's messaging him then the morning of the 17th at 8:35.
Before it gets boiling, go back to wherever the fuck you've just come from.
But then she's saying that when she's spoken to him on the voice call, that he's saying, I can't.
By the way, the fall that Jay had was 25 metres. That's an extremely high drop. Now, I don't know about you lot, but I've dropped my phone 1 metre and had more damage done to it than that. That's quite amazing to me. I'm not saying that...
A lot of people have bought up the phone, say if that his basically iPhone had dropped, say 20 to 25 feet, then it would have some serious damage to that phone. And it was basically not that much damage. It looked like it'd been scuffed and just damaged through wear and tear.
That proves anything or points to anything. It's just strange. Some might say the phone just fucking got lucky. Some might say maybe the fall wasn't what killed him. He was killed by a blow to the skull and he was placed where he was later found. I don't think that the phone proves that at all, but I'm just saying it's impressive that the phone is in such good condition.
Grazes all down this right leg. Grazes on the left leg, significant.
When he said that, I was actually thinking, Dr. Shepherd there, I was just thinking, but basically were those grazes because he was being dragged and that had something to do with the beach incident?
Injuries probably down the left arm with deep grazes going into the muscle and tissue.
I couldn't do this job, by the way. Like, looking at dead bodies months and months after they've died, it's fucking mental. You got to be weird to do that. But respect, it's an important fucking job.
We can take a bit of liver. The samples of liver are going to be really useful for toxicology. But whether they work or not on liver that is this decomposed in this situation, we will have to wait and see.
Just watching Jay Slater's liver being chopped up and put in a little tube. This is a mad documentary, by the way. And again, we're going to this level of research and detail, but we can't get the people who last fucking seen him to speak and say what they see. You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't add up to me.
There is a massive indicative of very severe force on the left side of his head.
Which, they've chalked off to a fall, I believe, but like, could that have been someone just smashing him over the head with something?
We got some injuries that are...
That's a massive possibility, which has been put out there by so many sleuths. And obviously that video, the door cam video of the old woman, she saw someone being chased with hammers. That is weird. That is very strange. And that is basically the only connection we've got, which obviously was still unconfirmed because didn't the grandmother did through the daughter call the police, but they told her to discard the information and technically it was nothing, which is absolutely bizarre. And that is the only basically link that we had to obviously someone possibly damaging Jay and hitting him over the head.
Are clearly, however their cause, instant unconsciousness and almost certainly instant death.
I hope that his mother, as bad as this is, can take some comfort from the fact that he wouldn't have fucking known anything was going on at that point, from that point onwards.
If I did something like that heinous and mad, like, why would I be on live chatting, bed chilled?
I'm not saying this guy did anything, because who the fuck knows? That's the whole point of this. But when he says, like...
The problem with Ayub, as soon as Lucy got on the phone to him, he was... I don't actually believe that, basically, he killed Jay. But what I do believe, he knows who did and who took him and the whole scenario from the beach. I do believe that, because he was definitely on a boat.
I wouldn't be doing this if I'd done anything. Maybe. But you know what? A lot of people who've killed people in the past have been uber confident, outspoken, loved the limelight. Ted Bundy was famous for it. So many people who've killed people before have acted like they've done nothing. That's actually not new. But look, maybe the kid's telling the truth. Who knows?
Videos on my phone where, like, me and him are videoing Rocky in the car where Rocky's sleeping on the front. We're just laughing at him. See what I'm saying? It was calm. Like,
yeah, but if you remember, we couldn't really see whether that was Rocky or really somebody else, because it was fuzzed out, as well as the two people in the back of the car. And like I said, it was mentioned that it was audio, basically audio sort of footage that took Jay's voice, and it was like a voiceover. You could do anything these days with the AI and all the professionals that Ayub knows as well.
It's a vibe, like 2 bottles there.
Video and audio editing.
Headshot. He looks like someone done a hit.
My problem is, how can you rely on a convicted drug dealer who's took your son, who's just a 19-year-old lad, into the belly of a mountain?
You can't trust him. That's the thing. You cannot trust him. And this is why us sleuths were trying to help the family out through putting information out there and videos out there that these people are a serious suspect.
To an Airbnb, which is 30 miles away from where you know he was staying.
And then after that, Jay ended up dead. And again, I'm not saying the guy did anything, but like if you said the last people who you'd want to see your kid before they go...
They're always involved. Simple. They're always involved, especially these two. As soon as we knew that Ayub was involved, took one look at his criminal record, we thought, oh no, what's going on here? Everybody did.
Would disappear. Top of your list wouldn't be a convicted drug dealer, would it? You'd probably not want that if you could help it. And yeah, that doesn't mean anything actually happened, but it's just a dodgy looking story, innit?
I'd love to be able to pump them all with truth drugs. You know what I mean? Lie detectors. I'd love to be able to do things like that.
I don't blame him. Yeah, I don't blame him for that. You can tell the dad just by saying that wants to know more, doesn't fully believe everything that's been said.
Well, he didn't, because obviously he was talking to Wax, and then I think, was it Rachel that got involved, and that whole conversation stopped, because I think they all knew that there was going to be an attack on all the sleuths, TikTokers and YouTubers who were just trying to help the family out.
Sent a message from Jay to Brad. So the message were obviously just flying around, and then the message sent to Brad, which obviously gave Brad a fright, because he messaged me straight away, are you on Jay's phone? I said, yeah, we've just signed into his Snapchat. He said, I've just got a message that's just come through from Jay. The last message he sent. Listen, I'm not going to make it.
That is a really fascinating message to have as his final message. Assuming he was the one who sent that, and let's not act like there's fucking husbands who killed their wives and kept...
There you go. We're talking about who had access to Jay's phone. Lucy was possibly one of them. Ayub, Brandon. I'd say that. And like I said, I've always said, just because his phone was there doesn't mean actually Jay was there. And that was something big, them accessing Jay's phone. And obviously if Lucy had his bank details and say, yeah, pay it into this bank, and now basically his friends had access to his phone, that's 50% of putting a plan together and action in it.
texting people as if nothing was the matter for an entire week while they fucking buried her in the fucking back garden and shit. That's happened before, right? But assuming he sent it, it begs the question of why did you know you weren't going to make it? Because if you were killed by a fall, you didn't know that fall was coming. Maybe it was just the circumstances he was in. The heat's bearing down. He doesn't know where the fuck he is. He's panicking. He's having a lot of, you know, anxiety and thoughts of, oh shit, this is it. Maybe that's all it was. But I think it's interesting that that was his frame of mind, considering he was killed by an immediate slip apparently, and he wouldn't have known anything about it.
That's his t-shirt that he was found in. Are these trainers?
It's interesting that his trainers are bright silvery with black on them. On this Snapchat story where he's having a smoke outside the Airbnb, you can see his shoes here, and that's not socks. You can tell because socks you'd have.
That's what I mean. That's either Brad or Brandon, or, you know, it could be Tom there as well. That is just my honest opinion. I don't think Jay was ever there at that time. And they're definitely not the trainers he was actually
a big pointy toe and then a row of smaller toes. That's a rounded edge like a shoe. The shoes he looks like he's wearing here look very dark. There's no bright silver bits on them, and Jay that day was wearing silvery trainers. Now that could mean, you know, that's not Jay Slater and that's someone else pretending to be Jay Slater on his phone. It could mean that he just threw someone's fucking slippers on before going out for a smoke. But it is just a little bit strange that the shoes he was found in, that he went walking off in a matter of minutes after taking this, aren't what he's wearing right there. And you're looking at the t-shirt that he was wearing, yeah, there's dust on there, but the level of head injury that they're saying he suffered, obviously there would have been a shitload of blood there. It doesn't look like there's much blood on there. There's none I can see on there. It's just not what I expected. It doesn't mean anything necessarily, but it's just not what I expected.
The toxicology report has come back. There is evidence of the use of MDMA, or ecstasy as it's also known. There's the use of cocaine in the hours prior to death. Although it shows that, yes, there was evidence of drugs within his system, it doesn't necessarily mean that this will form part of the cause of death.
You know, he's a young adult, and that's what they do when they go to festivals, so it's not a shock, it's just upsetting. The way that he's died.
I know. It's really, I know, Debbie, I'm so sorry.
I think this is one of the most heartbreaking moments of the documentary, to be fair. It's like for her to hear the truth and know that that's what he was going through. If he did wander off and was just discombobulated, maybe it was down to the drugs. Maybe. Personally, when I've seen people do stuff drug related, it's been in the eye of the storm, when they've been just taking it, they're full of fucking alcohol.
And then when they're feeling hammered, all they want to do is go home and sleep it off.
Not usually hours and hours and hours later, but that doesn't mean it's not possible. And clearly it's hitting her like, this is what my baby was doing out there. And the reality of it, it's undisputable when a scientist says this is what was in the system, and it's just hitting her hard, and I do feel for her.
Now, a major head injury at the end, so how do we explain that? Well, if he's falling down a mountainside, down scree, rough slopes, eventually he comes to a stop, and this is exactly what I would expect to see when the head hits something hard.
I'm not disagreeing with a scientist by any means. I'm just suggesting that, like, do you do many skulls that have fallen down mountains? I can't imagine that's a common thing for him. Is it not possible that someone smashed him one with a fucking weapon of some sort over the back of the head? Is that also possible? I'd be interested to know.
The one thing I can't rule out is that Jay was pushed at the top of a slope, just as I can't rule out whether someone has fallen downstairs on their own or is pushed down the stairs, because the push will leave no marks.
Fuck me. I mean, that's easily possible, isn't it?
This is the bag Jay had with him when he was found, and we got handed this.
The problem is, for a bag to be looking at you for 30 days, it just makes you wonder. Maybe, like I said, the weather elements didn't get to it, but the condition it's in, it's like it's like it was always indoors and not outdoors, if that makes sense. But it is what it is, isn't it?
From the geordie Seville, when it's got his things in it, his driving licence, and then there's this bottle of aftershave, and then his lighters. So there were no knives in his bag. There was no drugs in his bag. There was no expense.
Those knives were a narrative, I think, Lucy and maybe Brandon brought up in the early days to MWT, but that quickly changed because there was no knives. Ayob had said basically that there was no, expensive watch stolen. So he's actually confirmed that. And like I said, the knives, he didn't know that Jay at the Airbnb had knives, although we know, a lot of us know that Jay wasn't there at that moment.
Expensive watches in his bag, no AP watch, no Rolex watch. That's it, bag empty.
And while that's interesting, it also doesn't disprove that he sent pictures to people with him holding knives, or that he did have a watch at some point that night. It doesn't disprove.
The thing is, Josh Forshaw never even come back into court. He wasn't called for, was he, at the end of the day, because he was told to wait and get proof, and there was no proof because that didn't happen.
So obviously we've read all the statements. An Ayob statement, there is a mention of a watch that were taken off some Romanian guy, but Ayob did say that it was a fake watch.
You don't want a fake Rolex, it's fine. I'll take it. Like, that's possible. But the fact that we've had it confirmed that there was a watch and that was a true story that happened that night, wow. That, to me, then adds a bit more sense to the fact that he was sending a picture of his friend with knives on him, saying in case anything happens, in case they're trying to maybe double cross him or whatever, take the watch off of him. It doesn't confirm it, but it adds more weight.
I know my son. He didn't look capable when you see the videos, and he wasn't a thief. We just left.
Well, she made a great point there that basically the way Jay was and his friends looking at him when he collapsed in that club or fell down, should I say, but the video was reversed to make us think that something else happened, that Jay was all right. Was very, very odd, like he'd been spiked or probably might have been injected with something. These were the worries we saw, and it was flagged up by many people looking into this case, the state of him in the club and him leaving. So when that eyewitness did turn around and said, look, Jay was carried off because he couldn't walk himself by two guys, that says it all. He wasn't in any position to do anything, and the last thing he'd want to do was control his phone, control his bank account, and basically control himself by walking, which he couldn't do. So we had no option but to go with the people that took him.
With questions that we want to ask.
No, she doesn't want to believe her son was a thief. No one wants to think bad things, and maybe he wasn't, but he was posing all over Snapchat like a little gangster, being like, yeah, we just did this, we just did that. Like, he thought it was cool as fuck.
So online we have Ayob Kasim, who's given evidence virtually. We also will have Lucy Law, that's given evidence virtually. And then we have Bradley Gagan, the friend that's actually here at court, who will give live evidence. Those are the 3 out of the 5 witnesses that we managed to locate.
How are we in a situation where a kid's dead and 2 people won't fucking give evidence? Why not? Like, if nothing happened that is in any way dodgy, why would people refuse to fucking show up and give evidence?
That is one of the best questions True Geordie has asked, is because they've got something to hide. We've got Brandon, who hasn't said a word. We've got Lucy from day one. She's trying to clear her name or have anything to do with the Jay Slater case. Since we saw her at the funeral, we've had nothing from her or any form. I know she was talking to Hayley Comet in the early days. She said that anything that was important on the phone, she deleted it because she didn't think it was relevant to the case or to anybody who wanted to know. How bizarre is that? We did have Brad turn up. I think he knows a little bit more, because I think that because he was honest from the start of the case, I'll give him that. I think that Debbie basically give him more and give him a pass. But like I said, you can see that Debbie is really, really let down, because I think it was Lucy said that basically that she would look after Jay and make sure nothing happened to him. So I think deep down that Debbie will not forgive Lucy for what she's done. And this is why when we saw him at the funeral, her and Brandon, they were like all sheepish outside because they wasn't allowed into the wake, into the pub.
People wonder why conspiracy theories are starting. It's like, this ain't fucking normal, this.
Mr. Kasim, how did it happen that Jay ended up in your Airbnb?
He asked her to come with us.
Why was that?
He must have thought we were going to be up. Rocky sat in the passenger seat, Jay sat in the back, and I was driving.
At any point in this journey, were you making a detour to sell a watch?
No. One thing I'm sure is that Jay did not steal a watch.
And that's definitely not Jay in the back of the car. That even looks more fake than the first time I actually saw that photo. It's just the shape of him where he's sitting. And like I said, we've had experts look at it as well on TikTok and YouTube, and they go, it's just all weird. It really, really is the fake photos, and obviously the cover up. And I think it was all masterminded by Abe. I really, really do. But like I said, he thought it would fool people, but it didn't.
What?
Well, what about the original statement he made about the fucking watch being taken off a Romanian guy?
Not long after, I woke up again to buzzing sounds. I opened the door, and then they gestured to me to move my car.
And what was Jay doing at this time, please?
He was, I'm off, like. Then after I said, chill out, G, I'll drop you off. And he said, no, I'm going to see the boys, they're waiting for me.
Well, that's a fucking lie. Why is Jay lying to this guy and making an excuse to get away? Did they fucking follow up with any questions in any of this, by the way? Some inquest.
You received a video call from Jay walking down the main road. Can you describe what he was like at that point in time?
He told us, I'm going to come back down. He was asking if I had any drinks left at the apartment, and that was the last time I spoke to Jay.
Did you get the impression that he was in any way threatened or fearful?
No.
J. Dean Slater died on the 17th of June 2024 in the Juan Lopez Ravine in a remote area of the Tino Natural Park in Tenerife. Whilst attempting to descend the ravine, Jay Slater fell at a particularly dangerous area of difficult terrain and loose rock, meters, resulting in skull fractures, brain trauma, and from which he would have died instantly. There was no third-party involvement. Jay Slater's death.
So that's what they've settled on. It was an accidental death. And I get that's a possibility. I'm not saying necessarily that that's more or less likely. But to say that that's for a fact what happened, I don't think you can rule anything out, because there are so many strange things that happened around this that don't make sense. This isn't something that happens a lot, right? Kids don't just go out walking into the fucking Tenerife mountains and fall to their death.
We've got to remember that, in my opinion, I don't think he was ever there. The times his friends say he was there. I just think that phone, of Jay's phone they had, was key into putting him there, and Abe knew that at the end of the day, and masterminded all the photos with Lucy to make it seem like an accident. That's my opinion.
And not need to walk in that direction. No one chasing them. Nothing that just doesn't happen every fucking day. Oh, he was on drugs. Loads of kids in Tenerife are on drugs. There's a lot of reason for people to be suspicious about this, but I understand why they've gone, we haven't got any evidence to say otherwise. We've got speculation, we've got strange things, but we can't prove any of it.
I do feel satisfied.
Well, if you remember, LK said in basically a video with Abe, and someone else was in it as well, he said you've got to prove it, and it's right, there's no proof. But like I said, the way they haven't come forward, like Brandon and Lucy hasn't said anything technically since the funeral, it tells you a hell of a lot.
It's fine that I've got a closure. Now you've got all the facts together, and if he was scared, he would have said to one of his mates that he was scared. And
he did say, I can't go back though. Again, maybe he was just so fucked down the mountain and he was like, I don't even know if I can get back up there. Maybe, but I understand why.
One of the things is as well, in the condition he was in, why would you walk 2.5 hours to your death? That, it just doesn't make sense, into the wilderness. And we did see Chris Tenerife basically fighting through brambles and stuff like that. So it did say how difficult that terrain was. And don't forget, Jay was in shorts as well. No food, no water. Just doesn't make sense to me. It really, really doesn't, in how people can believe he could make that walk in the condition he was said leaving the club. That's just bizarre to me, really is.
The family are kind of like, okay, we've got some closure now, because at the end of the day, going through what they've been through with with the way he died and the speculation around it. It's very difficult to go through, I'm sure. And then to add on to the fact that someone might have taken him from you can only make it 10 times harder. And I get why they'd go, you know what, I'm just glad it wasn't any foul play, and that even if there are things that are strange and don't necessarily add up, I'm kind of happy to just go with this and close the book on wondering why and how, because that can probably drive people insane. And at least this way they can just say, right, okay, we've got an explanation of some sort. Do I believe it? Obviously, I think it's possible, but I just don't, as I've said, I don't think for a fact you can say this definitely happened. This is exactly what happened. I don't think you can say that. But I'm happy for them to say that's the most likely outcome. Fair.
And what you've got to remember is there's no really timeline given by AOP. It's just hearsay in what they want us to believe and their narrative. And they always knew from the early part of the day it was always going to be deemed as an accident because of what the coroner report in Spain. But I said the lies, I don't think, like obviously Lucy telling us that she wasn't at the Airbnb, and then we got the obviously Spanish court document that she did stay at the Airbnb, tells you some different stories. We could go with it. You could go with the narrative that basically he could have been killed by someone smashed him over the head, should I say, and placed there and took in. It could have taken that narrative, but we will never know. But what we do know, there's definitely a lot of sinister stuff which haven't been explained in this case.
Fair enough. But I think that this documentary could have done a lot more to piece together exactly what his movements were, who was talking to him, what was said to him.
But that was never going to happen. It was never going to happen because his friends were never going to pay that game, because like I said, it may have meant them implementing things, or one of them saying completely different to somewhere else because they're put under pressure. They knew they had to come out early to get their story straight. And obviously, because they work in numbers, your Ayabs, your Rockies, Brandon, Brad, and whoever else, Forshaw, LK, if they kept their stories right, and whoever else was there as well, then they've got a good chance of getting away with it, because obviously 6 or 7 people, including Ophelia as well, 6 or 7 people's stories basically match up, or we can go for an accident. Yes, they did do the checks, but I still think the professionals, and I respect that, but I still think there's a little bit more to this case that we didn't know. And like I said, Ali, the other day on our live mentioned missing time, and that was definitely a part to do with it. And with Ayab saying, oh, don't forget what happened the night before, because that's a way of confusing us in this case that we will never know what's happened. So as soon as Ayab really came into this case, due to basically Lucy picking up the phone, this is where I think it really, really, really went left.
Every little conversation and detail, what happened in all those 70 phone calls, there's a lot that could have been dug into, and it seemed more focused on making it about the social media people who were speculating about it as if they were like terrible people, which some people probably were, but there was a lot of secrecy and strange things going on around this case, and everyone had a reason to speculate, for sure, and still do. But let me know what you thought of the documentary, of the case, and of the conclusion. I'm fascinated to know what you lot think. And am I wrong for having these questions? I'm not trying to be disrespectful.
No, but like I said, that was True Geordie, honest as usual. And like I said, I think he is still 50-50 in what happened. I don't think he's as well versed as myself, Wax, or Mamadi, who looked really into this case. But it was brilliant because I respect him, because he was one of the first ones who actually came out in this case. We can't forget Duncan, who's also well versed in this case as well, and also done a little bit on talking about True Geordie. But like I said, I think he made some really, really good points, and he was one of the first people to actually come out who raised a lot of red flags in this case for people to look at. And he said he absolutely got hammered because, like I said, and Ayab said that, remember when that True Geordie was basically talking rubbish, because like I said, I think because True Geordie got mates out there as well in Tenerife, and he knows what goes on. I think that hit home basically to Abe and the rest of them, that there's people that actually don't believe our story. Let me know what you think, people. Don't forget to subscribe to True Geordie and myself, Streamline Entertainment. That was a reaction video, and I thought it was brilliant, actually. And it's great to see massive platforms like True Geordie actually speak about the case again, because I didn't think he'd do another video. Thank you very much. Let me know what you think, people. Thank you.